What is the ego? Firstly, the ego is not a thing. You may have recognized in yourself or in the descriptions that are placed that the ego gets turned into a thing. The ego is not a person inside you. This is how it often is related to. So the word ego can be a little bit distracting. The word itself, the way it's being used in self-intelligence, is the ego is a false sense of self made up of things that you've become identified with. The ego is a false sense of self, so it's more like an illusion. The ego is an illusion. What is that illusion made up of? Is just what you, the pure consciousness, have become identified with. Now, through the mind, you can become identified with literally anything. So the ego is a false sense of self made up of the things you've become identified with. Have you noticed your sense of self being created by these things? Initially, it's like, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. I didn't realize I was associating myself with things. Association is a really key awareness practice around this. What am I associating with? In many cases, you may do something and someone may say, who apparently knows you very well, that's not you. That's not you to go to that concert, to wear that piece of clothing, to laugh like that, to so on. So there is a pattern of expression that have come out of this identity that others then relate to, then they define you by that. And you may know in social situations, you could be with certain friends, and with these friends, these set of ideals or likes or interests are okay and accepted and easy to move with. But I would not bring this side of me, my spiritual side, for example, could be the case. I wouldn't bring my spiritual side into this conversation because that's the part of me that is accepted or not in those conditions. So then we can split our sense of self to meet different environments like this. So the most intense level of identity is the body and the mind. I am my body, I am my mind. Why am I my body? Because I experience it. How do you experience the body? Through the five senses. So because I experience this is me. This is one of the major illusions that generates this egoic state, is because I experience it, it is me. And the other is the mind. How do you experience the mind? You experience it as a voice in your head, and you experience the images in your mind. And this movie that is playing out constantly. So through the mind is how you can identify with whatever it is. You can identify with a sports team, you can identify in your relationship, you can identify with your conditioning, you can identify with all of these things as a personal me through the thoughts in your mind. This is why to come out of this illusory state of self is to investigate, to inquire to what the mind is saying. Because it is the mind and it's through the mind that you identify. So the person is another way to describe ego. And when you tune into the person is the sum total of everything you are currently identified with. Enlightenment is just to disidentify with these things as who you fundamentally are. I am not what I am aware of. How do you do this? By being open and willing to become aware of these things. So why is it called a false sense of self? This personal idea of yourself is a false sense of self because it is not permanent. It is ever changing. Today I like, tomorrow I don't like. I'm this emotion, tomorrow I'm that emotion. Okay, so which one is you then? Well, I'm both, you may say. I'm neither. Some days I'm happy, some days I'm sad. Yes, that is true. That is true. And identity is to say which one you are. If I am a happy person, you have a problem when you're not happy because you cannot accept the unhappiness because it contradicts who you are, which is a happy person. So assuming you're a happy person and something that is not naturally happy happens, then denial will come and compensation will come and pretending will come and masks will come and lying will come and compensation and entitlement and all the things that you've learned. Rather than sadness is here. Happiness is here. Oh, sadness is here again. It's all allowed to come. It's all allowed to exist because I'm not identified with that as who I am. And now the full experience can happen as well. Sadness can be fully expressed and experienced. Happiness can be fully experienced because there's no limitation anymore. And when there's no limitation, these things seem to flow very, very well, very harmoniously. This is why it's so important to recognize this egoic state. The egoic state being I'm identified with. And all I'm required to do is be willing to recognize that I'm its witness. And the witness of this is not a thing. It doesn't have a shape. It doesn't have a position. It doesn't have a start or a finish. Therefore, it is unchanging. And what happens with that so naturally is there is this surrender to what happens. So if you have an emotion or an event going on and so on, this is now allowed to be, and this is going to come, and like the clouds in the sky, it is going to go, just like everything else. And now, from the position that I'm not in resistance, the egoic state is a state of resistance because life keeps contradicting it. It just keeps going against it. So you're in resistance because it's like, stop going against who I believe I am. And at some point you become wise enough to go, why am I resisting the whole of existence? This is clearly a losing battle. I'm going to certainly lose. That is called humility. The resistance is arrogance. This false sense of self, am entitled to and have the strength and energy to fight the universe to be the way that I want it to be. And in that space, you become very strange in your responses to things because the responses only amplify more of what you don't want to happen. What you resist persists. That's why that saying exists, to recognize that. Whereas when you surrender to the fact of reality, your naturalness moves to the harmony that is life itself. Nature, for example, reflects harmony. It reflects a balance that's intrinsic. You are this. You are this natural balance this natural harmony when you're not identified with being a thing,